Hello, everyone, and welcome again to Chamber Chat. My name is Carol Guess. I'm the board chair for the Greater Houston Black Chamber of Commerce. And today we have a couple of mavericks with us. We're going to learn a lot today from our newly elected city council members who have done a great job since they've been on council and have come up with a program to help landlords and tenants in the city of Houston. And those of you who are not from Houston and you hold elected office, you can learn from these two council members. So make sure that you pay attention today. We have with us Ms. Tiffany Thomas from District F, Councilmember Tiffany Thomas, and Councilmember Edward Pollard from District J. Welcome to Chamber Chat.
Thank you for having us.
So we're going to get right into our questions for today. So tell us a little bit about the rent relief program. Why did you think what is it, and why did you think it was important to have?
Well, I mean, it was Corona. And so, well, first, thank you for inviting us to talk about this very important issue. I don't think, and I don't want to speak for my colleague, but I don't think he or I imagined our first 100 days to be this, right? So the city of Houston, once, the orders came out that we had to minimize community spread, one of the impacts of that was that people, lost their jobs. They were furloughed, laid off, which meant they had interruption in their income and they were unable to pay their rent. And we were, from a federal level, awaiting direction and, waiting on what they would do. And locally, we decided that, we can respond to Houstonians best. This is why we're elected to city council, to represent the best interests of our neighbors. And so we quickly, all of our colleagues started devising a plan on how we could respond to these needs.
Okay, Councilmember Pollard.
So we just wanted to help and do everything that we could because we saw our communities were impacted and people were, like you said, was losing their jobs and didn't have the ability to make their rent. And so I was on the phone with Councilmember Thomas one day, and she came up with this idea of possibly using our council district service fund dollars, which are discretionary dollars that each district member gets each year, to go towards a short-term rent relief program. Mm-hmm. And so we were brainstorming and were able to get our other council colleagues on board, and we actually sent a letter to the mayor several weeks ago urging him to look into a rent relief program, and I was proud to stand with her to push that effort forward.
Absolutely. And grateful that our colleagues, it was kind of a whim, like, what can we do? Projects were already in place. And very excited, that our colleagues said absolutely, even at large members that do not have discretionary funds for their to spend for constituent services. But in principle, we had complete support, 14 out of 16. And it was something significant that the mayor realized. It was some significant support. So once the CARES dollars came about, he moved quickly. And to make sure we could stand a program up that we could be proud of, even though we know it's not perfect, but we are working under some specific circumstances, emergency crisis circumstances. And so this is our attempt of our best effort for this first round for sure.
Right, and this was passed last week at council, correct?
Yes, right. Unanimously.
Right, and so we're talking about a new program. It opened up for lenders this past week.
Landlords, right. So it opened up last Thursday at 10 a.m. So the way the program operates is that Baker Ripley is the pass-through agency. The website went live for landlords. They have until the 12th to sign up. And I believe as of today, I looked this morning, there's over 4,000 landlords registered in that portal, which allows them to, and there's a few things that they have to do in order to accept these funds. So they have to waive late fees for April and May. Any additional payments over the 1056, which you're willing to cover, they have to establish a payment plan with the renter. They have to, prepare their EIN. So we have to make sure that they're legit so we can transfer the funds. And then on the 13th, renters will be able to apply for those funds. So there are one-pagers that have gone out, I believe, in multi-languages, and the Black council members sent a letter to the Black organizations Thursday, informing them of so they can let their constituencies know, from elders, young people, single parents, even those who are landlords, who are in real estate. Here's the process. We realize that Black Houstonians represent a large percentage of renters in the city of Houston, and we wanted every organization in our community to be prepared with the accurate information. So we're not looking at the data 2 months later and wondering, like, what happened to the Black people?
Yeah, and also I think another great thing about that program is every landlord that signs up has to agree not to send out letters of eviction.
Correct.
And so that was always a big hurdle that we were trying to get over, because a lot of people were feeling really pressured and overwhelmed when they got those letters. And so this was a creative way in which we could have them no longer be able to do that.
Yep.
Okay, and so this program is for residential renting?
It's for all. It's single family, duplex, multifamily apartments. So if you are a renter and you have a lease, you are eligible to apply for these funds.
But as far as businesses are concerned?
Strictly residential.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that point. So are our members who are landlords, this program is for you?
Absolutely.
Make sure that you take full advantage of the program. And speaking of that, you know, we always talk about government funding, mismanagement, you know, where funding, is it being appropriated correctly? So can you explain to us how this program is being funded?
Sure.
So it's being funded through the CARES Act, which is from the federal government. And the city of Houston received $404 million recently, and that's to cover all of our COVID-related expenses. And it wasn't designated strictly for rent relief, but we felt as if rent relief was very important. And so we put together a $15 million program out of the CARES Act dollars that will be facilitated through Baker Ripley, which is a local nonprofit. And so it took a few weeks for us to put together the program and get the contract language in place. And so the dollars are actually coming from the federal level.
Okay, and so it's carved out of the overall dollars that we receive from the federal government?
Correct.
Okay, all right. And could you just talk about the council service funds, just briefly, to explain to our viewers what those are?
Yeah, so council district service fund dollars are discretionary dollars that each district council member gets each fiscal year. Those dollars are usually for projects. So when you have sidewalks and maybe playground equipment, different improvements in your specific community, those dollars usually go towards that. You have $500,000 that are allocated from Metro, which are usually for streets and sidewalks, things like that, anything to deal with mobility. Then you have $250,000 that are more operational, that can be for equipment or programming. And so we initially knew that some district council members had available dollars out of that pot of money that we could possibly put forward for a rent relief program. It wasn't going to be on the scale of the dollars that we have now from the CARES Act, but we did believe, since we did have available dollars, that it would get us through a short-term period that would help as many people as we could until the CARES Act dollars flowed through. But the CARES Act dollars came in much sooner than we expected. So instead of having to use the council district service funds that would not have been able to be at the magnitude of the amount of money that the CARES Act dollars are going to be able to do, we were able to quickly put in a program with the federal dollars that rolled out last week.
While still having the option to use our CDSF funds in targeted ways within our district. And that was one of the things that the mayor incorporated within that contract, to allow council members with district service funds the flexibility to support that program with their own dollars. And then, to my colleague's point, we had no idea, because it's the feds, when that money would come, right? We're still waiting on Harvey money. So this was our intention of a stopgap, immediate response to respond to immediate needs of COVID-19 within our districts. And so I intend, or I hope that our council members, our colleagues will continue to designate those funds for continued response in their district.
Right. And do you anticipate that this program will extend beyond May, or that we may have need for that?
Oh yeah, 15 million, when you look at the scale, right? We already have 4,000 properties that are signed up. So when we talk about, that 15 million will be gone very quickly. But also what was passed at council on Wednesday was an additional community development block grant allotment. So we receive an allotment from the federal government, period. But in response to COVID, we received an additional 22 million that responds to homelessness, some emergency services funds, emergency shelter, tenant-based relief. There's an additional $8 million that we're designating that the next round that we anticipate, we'll use those funds to respond. And what we'll do is I break those dollars up through a variety of agencies because we know that there are language barriers, cultural barriers, digital divide, just familiarity, trust with organizations and brands. Different organizations can go in different neighborhood communities. And so we do anticipate something else. Now there's a federal package that we're anticipate coming that's going to respond specifically to rent relief. But this is just really the local leadership, us encouraging the mayor to stand something up quickly, because the reality is we have 57% of our Houstonians are renters. And, that's just apartments. That's not even talking about single family or duplex or any of that. And so we knew that that was an immediate need as we figure out the rest, because we've never seen this before, right? So they expect us to have all of the answers immediately and on time.
That's
But we've never seen this before. And so for many of us, we are experiencing this at the same rate and measure as everyone else, right? We have loved ones that live in apartments that are laid off, and we're trying to figure out that. And so that was one of the reasons why the Black council members, we wanted to send that joint letter, because it may not be you, like I have a mortgage, it may not be you, but it may be your brother or your cousin or your grandmother that pays rent, and they need to understand everything they need in order to, benefit from these funds.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, we thank you all for taking that step, because it's necessary, it's needed. And we need conscientious council members and elected officials like you all that are going to think ahead and think about what our issues are, and begin to create measures and implement them, get them passed in order to help our community to continue, because we live in an ecosystem.
Absolutely.
We need to have renters, business and residential renters feeling comfortable about their surroundings in order to for the whole ecosystem to work.
Absolutely.
So thank you for stepping out and making this happen. And so let's address renters for a little bit. If someone is approved for rental assistance, let's say they sign up on the 13th, they get approved, but they were behind on their payments at one point, but now they're caught up. Would they qualify even though they have been behind at one point?
So they would have to be current through the month of March. So if they were, a bad tenant, maybe, or consistently late, or already on an established payment plan, no. This is for those who are directly, this is a response to those who are unable to pay their rent directly due to COVID. So they've had to be paid out, zeroed out for the month of March, paid up. So 90% of the renters paid their rent in April. So that's, per the Houston Apartment Association. And so this is for those for April and May that we're trying to shore up. I know there's been some questions about that. If, I was late in February and I was X, Y, and Z, this is particularly for those, because those federal dollars are only designated for COVID relief.
And again, this impacts commercial renters as well. So You
Yes.
want to be mindful of that. And Councilman
Right.
Pollard, if once someone is approved for rental assistance, how are those funds dispersed
So
to the?
those funds are going to be dispersed directly to the landlord. And so both parties will get a notification that they were approved, but the funds will not go to the tenant. They will go to the landlord, and
Right.
the tenant will be notified that they were granted those dollars to go towards their April and May rent.
And how, Councilmember Pollard, how would the renters know that the landlord has actually received payment?
So they will get a notification. Both parties have to sign up for the program. And so they're both given a confirmation code after the fact.
Mhm.
And so if they are approved, then both parties will be notified.
So what happens if a landlord chooses not to participate?
So if a landlord chooses not to participate, we are urging all of the tenants to please encourage their landlords to participate, because it's going to be to the benefit of the landlord. And I think that's why you see such a large response from landlords, is because they understand that this is an opportunity to get unpaid rent collected. And so I don't foresee many situations where a landlord would not want to sign up for the program, especially if he has tenants that are unable to pay, because this may be one of the only ways those tenants will be able to pay due to this program.
Now, what if someone has paid April and May rent, but they still need help? Can they qualify?
So if they've already paid April and May, then they won't qualify for this disbursement. This is just for those who cannot make April and May. But it's to my understanding that this first $404 million that we received, as I explained earlier, it's for all COVID-related expenses for the city of Houston. And so once we start to dive into it and see how long we're going to be dealing with this crisis and all the expenditures that are needed, we'll be able to budget accordingly, and hopefully we'll be able to come back with additional dollars, the $8 million that have been approved already, and maybe some additional dollars based on the need that will help people going forward who may not be able to pay their rent in June.
Okay. So essentially, the viewer, everyone who's watching, and people that you all can go back and tell, we just have to monitor the process.
Absolutely.
To see where things are, see where things stand. You know, make sure you monitor city council meetings and keep.
And that's why we wanted to send out a joint letter to different African American orgs and entities throughout the city, because everyone's not going to be able to depend on social media or the news. Right. Or even be able to watch those council meetings. And so we want to do our due diligence to make sure everyone has as much information and accurate information as possible, so they'll be well informed.
Yeah.
And so as far as landlords that live out of state, this program applies to them as well, correct?
Absolutely. They own property in the city of Houston limits. It applies to them. So they're just as eligible. And through the Houston Apartment Association, you know, they're communicating this information out to all the property owners within that network. So even though they may physically live out of state, they are eligible, and based on the participation directory, we have quite a few that have signed up already.
Okay, that's good to know, because we do have several property owners in the city that don't live in Houston or live out of state, and so
or out of the country even.
Right, exactly right, exactly right. If a landlord has registered for the program, but their tenants have not, but they paid April and May rent, may a landlord still apply?
A landlord can always apply, but the funds are only going to be allocated to tenants who signed up and have not paid either April or May.
Correct.
Okay, so it would behoove the landlord and the tenants to work together in order to secure this funding.
Yes.
They need to have communication.
And the landlords know. So that's why you see such a big turnout when it comes to their participation. Our big thing now is making sure that tenants know and understand the process that goes in behind that, because the landlords are, they're paying attention to rent relief. But a lot of times our communities may not be getting the same feedback, same attention, even some of the same information. And so we want to make sure that they have the information so that they can go on and apply, because without them applying, it doesn't matter if their landlord signed up or not, they won't be eligible. And so our biggest thing is now that the landlords have had their week to sign up, starting on Wednesday will be the tenants' opportunity to sign up. And we really hope to see a really big push when it comes to their participation.
Yeah. And the landlord should be reaching out to the residents to let them know that they have signed up and that they are approved. They've gone through the pending status. So, it's an aggressive two-way relationship, and they can always go on if they're a tenant and they're not sure, they can always go on the website and look and see if their properties are there. I mean, when I was just checking the statistics for my district, I saw several independent owners that own townhomes. I saw, complexes. I saw a variety. So we're trying to get the word out so that people know for sure.
Well, speaking of that, why is it that both the landlord and the tenant have to register?
Versus what?
Just the landlord.
Because, well, a couple things. The landlord has to agree to certain stipulations, right? So they have to agree to not send out the notices. They have to agree to put their tenants on a payment plan, XYZ. So they have to agree to that contract. And then the tenant has to sign up to be able to show that they're in need, right? Without the tenant signing up, you won't know if that person is actually in need. And so it's both parties are involved in the original transaction, regardless if they had this fund or not. They're both parties to that particular lease contract, and so they both need to be parties to this fund.
And that's the mechanism in place that allows for like a universal understanding about payment plans. So initially when COVID hit, many of the developers, we would have individual conversations with them about what their plans were, because I would receive a lot of emails and my colleagues would receive a lot of emails about rent. And so many of them had initiated separately their own payment plan or conversation, but it wasn't consistent and there was no universal method. So the needs were different. And so by them participating here, we know for a fact that there will be no late fees. We know for a fact that those participating will not initiate the intent to evict. We know that now the renter understands their obligation to a payment plan and what that schedule is. And it's just not unclear like it has been in the past, because we were waiting on, federal direction and what's the state, and everyone has a different unique order. So this allows us everyone an even playing field.
And it also allows to make sure that those dollars are used for rent relief. And if it was just the tenant signing up and maybe the tenant getting their check, and for whatever reason they decided not to pay their rent with that money, then all of this would be for nothing. And so we want to make sure that it is strictly for rent relief. The best way to do that is to get the money to the landlord, have the landlord sign up for the program, and have the tenant do the same.
Right. And having the landlord accountable, because by saying we're not going to evict, and following those other guidelines, and the tenant responsible as well, so that they can show that they're in need, just as you said. I mean, it cannot be a situation where one party is only responsible, because unfortunately, there's
it never works out. It does never works out. And we want to, because it's a limited amount of money, it's 15 million. It's a lot of money, but it's then in the same sense it's not. We have to make sure that we are using this money with fidelity, and that we're, that this is a stringent program, and that those who are most deserving and most in need rather are able to benefit from these funds. Because, the thing is that, we're talking about, restaurants were essentially closed, tips and bartenders and all types of occupations, they ceased. And so we have to respond to that And you know, I know there's been some criticism around the program that it's not enough and it doesn't go far enough. But you know, I would tell you, if I was late for 2 months, I wouldn't be worried about that. If the fact that I'm worried about getting my rent paid and the fact that I can be in position to do that, I think a renter would have a different position from that. So it's, you know, it's our first opportunity to stand something up. We think it's a good first step. We do anticipate utilizing additional community development block grant dollars to respond to round 2. And then we're waiting on an additional federal package so we can do something more extensive. And I think that's clear, and that's what's on the mayor's agenda as well.
Okay, so we just have to be patient. You know, I think we all need to be patient with each other and work things out as we move along, as you all mentioned earlier, because at least you're doing something that is effective at this point in time. Another question is, why is it only covering April and May?
Because that's when the, you know, March is essentially when the order to shut down went in. And so the funds, the language for the use and the spending of the funds, it's very stringent, like it's tight, and it's only in response to COVID. And so those are the 2 months that we're talking about impact. And we are supposed to be opening back up. So the idea is that, you know, many Houstonians or some Houstonians will be returning back to work in June, but it's not lost on us that some of those jobs are gone permanently and people will need additional support. So that's why it's April and May, because those are the 2 months we've been dealing with.
I mean, we haven't even made it to the next month yet.
Correct.
So with the limited dollars that we do have, we have to make sure that where we are right now is taken care of as best as we can.
Yeah.
And then once we get to June and July, we'll see what we have then and what's actually going on with the city when it comes to the transition of reopening. But we don't want to look to the future when we're still trying to take care of the present.
Right.
Right.
Because April and May are still on, you know, it's a real thing for a lot of people. They're, you know, very nervous. And then if you know, and then Councilmember Pollard and I in the Southwest, we have a large like African diaspora, you know, Ethiopian, Sierra Leone, you know, and so the language barrier is a real thing. If they see intent to vacate, not knowing that they don't have to leave, they see vacate or eviction, then they're gonna leave, right? And so it exacerbates the homelessness issue. Just a lot of things that's interconnected. So our intention was to cure the April and May to keep them in place, so we can then touch base and touch back after June and see how we can respond as a city again.
Okay. And along those lines, does immigration status have to be provided?
No. No.
The answer is no.
No. Yeah, no. All you have to do is be able to provide your lease, a utility bill, or a photo ID.
Plain and simple.
Plain and simple.
Plain and simple.
Plain and simple.
If someone doesn't have access, Councilmember Pollard, to a computer or a smartphone, is there another way to apply?
Yes, so we have a direct number you can call. You don't need a smartphone. You just need a phone, and that number is going to be 832-390-2018.
Yeah.
And the operator will take your information over the phone and help you get applied into the program.
Okay, thank you very much for that. In closing, I'd like to hear from both of you what you hope Houstonians will get out of this program overall. And we'll start with you, Councilmember Thomas.
Out of this program, you know, this virus is ever changing. And just for context, we just recently rolled out a model of citywide testing. So I think not just in addition to that, and with this rent relief, hopefully Houstonians have some relief, you know, and some hope that we are moving in the right direction. We are still last as a state in terms of testing. So we are doing our very best, and I would want landlords and tenants to know, the business community and those who are renting, that our best efforts are dedicated to making sure that we can keep your business open and keep you in your home. and we are quietly working behind the scenes not to be distracted. And so if they have any questions, they can definitely call any of their council members, their district council members, because we really are doing a lot of heavy lifting on their behalf. And so we want to make sure that they are in position to have some relief, to catch their breath, to kind of, about the next steps, because many of them may not be returning back. So hopefully they take full advantage of this program and can get back on their feet sooner than later.
Councilmember Pollard?
Yeah, this program was put in place because we understand the need. We hear from our constituents on a daily basis on how this crisis has impacted their lives, especially financially. And so we're not tone deaf, we're compassionate. We're here to serve the people of the city of Houston. And we understand that people need a roof over their heads to be able to protect their families and to go forward in the days to come. And so this is just a small way in which we can do that. Every day we're thinking of creative and innovative ways in which we can impact communities. And this is just the first step. And so we want everyone to please get involved, get the information out to your friends and neighbors, and hopefully we can do all we can to help you get through these challenging times.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. You are both doing a fabulous job on Houston City Council. And before we wrap up, what is the website for people who want to go and register? What is that website?
So the website is going to be HoustonRentAssistance.org. And once you go on that website, you'll be able to get all the information you need to complete the process. Landlords have until tomorrow to apply. And then on Wednesday at 10 a.m., tenants will be able to go on and apply. And we're encouraging everyone, especially those in the African-American community, to please get to a computer by like 9:30.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even wait till 10 because it's going to be on a first come, first served basis.
Yeah.
And you want to be at the front of the line as much as you can. And so don't wait until 10 or 11 or 12 to jump on there. I would try to get on there a little bit early. And as soon as that portal opens, start to fill out the application.
Absolutely. And have your information ahead of time. And some apartment complexes, they are working with tenants for their business center space. So tenants can come in and use that. So if you need to, safely and cautiously visit someone else's home to use that computer, please make arrangements for yourself. If there's an elderly person that doesn't have access, please act as a support to that person and call the phone and help that elder person with their information so they can submit.
Okay, so one more time, the phone number and the website.
So the website is HoustonRentAssistance.org, and the telephone number is 832-390-2018.
Excellent. Everyone, all of your questions should be answered today. Tuesday is the last day, May 12th, for landlords to sign up. Wednesday, May 13th, is the day that renters can start signing up. So make sure that you have all your paperwork in order, you have everything you need before you log on or make a phone call so that you can move through the process as quickly as possible and get in line early, start early, 9:30 if you can. So we'd like to thank Councilmember Tiffany Thomas of District F, Councilmember Edward Pollard of District J, and we'd like to thank you for watching with us again today. Make sure you visit the Greater Houston Black Chamber on all of our social media platforms. We have the most up-to-date information regarding COVID-19 efforts across our city, state, and country, and support our businesses, HoustonByBlack.com. Visit HoustonByBlack.com to see a listing of our members where we cover every industry you can think of as far as business is concerned, and we need your support. So thank you again to our council members, and thank you for watching again, and we'll see you next time on Chamber Chat. Have a great day.
Bye.